articulation practice instructions and the process. Bismillah. So, as you can see at the top here, you have a link. Okay, that you need to save this because you're going to access this daily when you're practicing the letters, inshallah. So save that. Let's get into it. Bismillah. So, first of all, what is the purpose of practice? The goal of this entire program is to develop the foundational level in expert level muscle memory of the Quranic letters, not by memorizing rules, but by training the mouth, okay, by getting more muscle memory to feel and recognize and then repeat each articulation correctly. Okay, so through those repetitions, you're going to be building your muscle memory to a foundational level in an expert in the expert level of Quranic letters. Bismillah. So, Bismillah. We do this through two things: a loop of focus repetition and feedback. Okay. So here's a loop. What would happen is you practice, you'll get feedback from me, right? As is a tradition as well. Traditionally, you'd go to a sheikh and it's called talaqi. Talaqi meaning you go to a sheikh, you recite to him, he will correct you, and then you practice. And then you go and read to him again, and you go through the Quran, the whole Quran like that. And on the end of that journey, you'd get an ijazah, right? So the same way, you practice, you recite to the sheikh, you get feedback. And you go practice again, get feedback again. And the loop continues until you master your tajweed. So, after understanding the theory through descriptions and the theory videos, etc., then your understanding will grow through your senses, like your eyes, your ears, right? As was mentioned before in the first few videos, we mentioned about the familiarization, right? Eyes, ears, and feeling of the tongue, right? As you practice. Inshallah, your practice is split into two parts, okay? First is that you practice all the letters separately. Then you'll be practicing surahs, as in whole surahs. And you will get into that, how we do that. So how do we do practicing letters? We practice letters by practicing in all their forms. There's 4 different forms, right? As well as in context with a word. And we'll be following the examples, which is on the link which I showed you in the beginning, of Sheikh Ibn Suwaid's practice videos, okay? Because they have examples of all these forms. Okay? So the first is what? The harakat. Fatha, Dhamma, Kasra. Then the absence of harakat, sukoon. And then in context in a word. In context in a word. So these are the 4 types. You want to do them in context with words. Okay. So the feedback loop, in terms of how we have practiced and feedback, right, we're going to do a loop of 3 in these in this course. First is that you have a first attempt after completing the theory video. Okay, so understand it, practice it through the theory video as much as you can on your own and see what you get to. Then record that and send a video in for me so I can give you feedback, and I'll give you a reaction video, inshallah. So your video should include each of the 5 examples that I mentioned here. Okay, so you need to do an example of Fatha, an example of Dhamma, 1 Kasra, 1 Sukoon, and a word. That will be in your first attempt, right? Okay, and I will give a feedback video with reaction video, basically, with my face recording as you're reciting, and I'll react and give you feedback live on the video. After that feedback, you will use that video to then practice 200 times more, okay? And that's your first attempt. Okay, then your second attempt is what? After you're practicing 200 times, send me another video, okay, with all of these again. All 5 forms, send a video for feedback. I'll do a reaction video again. You get your feedback, and using that feedback, you practice 1,000 times. That is the minimum amount of practice you're required to do. Then you have your final attempt after the 1,000, okay, to record another video of the practice of all these 5, okay, and then I'll give a final feedback video, right, to you, and whether this is a completely new letter for you or not, depending on that, you will then do more practice, right, and you practice it to 3,000 times, okay. When it comes to the first attempt, don't spend too much time on the first attempt, or spending too much time going through the video that Sheikh Ibn Suwaid has put out, because your main time is going to be spent in feedback loops here with me through Talaqi. Obviously it's online Talaqi, but it's not face to face. However, this is our attempt at an online version, inshallah. Okay, so that is the most important thing. You need the feedback. So that's where your time is going to be spent. Okay, you're going to do that. Spend time in practice after I give you feedback. Okay, and do the same. Spend time in practice after I give you feedback. So the feedback is important. That's what you're looking for. And then you practice with that. So, as to not spend too much time on the first attempt, skip to the relevant parts of the video to show the different examples. Okay, let's go on an example. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, for example, let's actually put it over there. Okay, let's try this. Bismillah. So, for example, I'll just leave that for a minute. Okay. Good. In this one, he's already doing it in its different forms. Or E. Harakat. Then he does it with sukoon here. Right? And sukoon here. But here is different, this one, because it's got something called nabara in it. I won't be teaching you this, but this is something about with Hamza. When you stop on it and after a mad letter, you actually have to raise the pressure of the air. So here we'll go through that in Hamza. And then look, you have the normal sukoon here. So that's the 4 versions. That's the four different types. And actually 5 for Hamza. Okay. And that's all of that. All of this 1 minute and 30 seconds is those examples. Then it goes to this. Now there's examples in verses or in words. Fa'i, fa'inna, right? These are important to go through because it puts the Hamza, it puts the letter into context. And the letter in context might be a bit different actually, sometimes. So you might, for example, one common mistake here is that you skip the haraka. And people say fa'inna, where's kasra? Kasra is missing. Fa'inna, not fa'inna, inna, right? So that's important to go through context. Okay, then you got those and you got that done, right? See, and he just gives a bit more examples. Then he goes to the next letter, which is what you do. So you go to the next letter, look at it in its different forms. Okay, so that's ha in sukoon, ha fatha, ha in mad he's put that. Here he's got put ha in sukoon after hamzatul wasl. Here, let's see. That's the cool. So if you get to a place where he's done this and he's not put it in different harakat positions, then pronounce the harakat yourself as well. Because I need you to do the 5 harakat and an example with a word. So that's what you need to do. That's important. And I'll give you feedback on that. If you get to a place where he's not mentioned the harakat, all of them, then do it on your own. Just do the harakat and then send the recording to me, inshallah. These are good for listening and imitating, inshallah. And of course, as I mentioned before, if your listening is biased, then you need to go back to your theory video and look at where it comes from, and try and get the letter by feeling.
أنتم اهدنا الصراط فعلوه وجوه.
That was an example. Okay. So some notes on your submitting, right? What you should be doing when you're recording your first video, your first practice, right? Do it short and quick, because I'll be responding to you and I'll be giving a reaction. I'll be pausing your video, and that'll be adding to your seconds as well. So you want to make your first one quick after you've practiced it a little bit, around 10 to 15 seconds, okay? That's the first point. Then you need to send it to me through WhatsApp, and you need to have the letter's name in it in the message, okay? And you can send multiple letters in one day, okay? For example, if you send 3 of them in one day, you can do that, but only after you've studied the theory videos, okay? So that is because, obviously, when I'm responding, I'll respond to an average of 1 video per student a day, right? So that you can focus deeply on correction. But on the chance that I don't reply in that same day to you, then you have a 48-hour window where I will respond, okay? And so while you're waiting for feedback, I don't want you to stop your practice. So you should not stop. You should keep studying new letters and practicing others as well. Practicing the ones that you haven't done yet, and then learning their theory and practicing. So that's why you can send multiple letters in one day, as to not stop your practice, okay? So when you're sending your videos, right, send them even if you're still waiting on a reply to the first one, as I said to you. Then by the end of 1 or 2 days, you may have already received corrections, right, for 3 or 4 letters instead of just 1. That'll put you ahead of the game a bit, and it will ensure that you have a good consistent journey throughout the month, inshallah. Okay, now that was the first practice. That was the letters. Now you're looking at the live sessions we're doing, in which we practice full verses and surahs, right? Or put surah. So, as you know, we have 2 live feedback sessions a week, and that's a total of 8. What will be happening in these sessions, that you'll be tested on the surah, and you must practice that surah throughout the week to be ready for the session. Okay, the schedule is going to be every weekend, so either Saturday or Sunday or Friday and Saturday, and that's going to be confirmed whether I'm in the UK or in Egypt, right? It'll depend on that. So, so depending on which student you are and what time period we're having the lessons, I will be confirming that with you. And the same surah, obviously, is going to be tested twice, because we have 2 days in the weekend, okay? So week 1, at-takathur, that will be tested twice. And you need to be practicing throughout the week that surah, okay? And you will be tested on it on the weekend, on a Saturday. Then the next week is week 2, Nasr, Ash-Sharh, 3 and 4, and Naba, which is the biggest surah on the list. So you're going to be tested twice in the same surah, because that will give you a feedback for the first day, and then you can practice with that feedback, okay? You can see this practicing with surahs as extra practice on top of your letters practice, because you need to have some context in surahs. So I wanted to give this to you, inshallah, too. Okay, it's important that you practice in a surah so that you know how to apply the letters. Okay, the method of how you're going to practice is with 30 times over, right, individual letters or 2 letters at a time, focusing on the correct repetition and training of the individual articulations, right, where the letter comes from, their characteristics, the harakat, right, separating from the articulation of the letter itself to the haraka, which is like, for example, fa, a, fa, or a, right? You separate from ayn to fatha. A. You need to hear the sound. Okay, that's what I mean by separating from an articulation to haraka. And you'll be surprised, but most of the time that is skipped. Okay, and you'll see that inshallah in the sessions. Sukun, i.e. relaxing on sukun. Okay. For example, meme should not do that. Or for example, lam shouldn't have your mouth open. Should be relaxed with the jaw in its resting position. The jaw in its resting position. Not okay, wrong. And additionally, on top of those, you can focus on other rules again as well. When I give you your feedback, I'll probably also give you feedback on these rules. So then you focus on getting those correctly too. Okay, but of course the main goal of this course is the letters, getting the letters correct. Okay. For example, in your practice, I told you what? Practicing what? 1 to 2 letters at a time. So here, we have the hamza, and we have lam. Those are the first 2 letters. What I need you to do for your practice is to first practice hamza with with fatha correctly 30 times. Okay. How? Making sure the fatha is complete, the harakat is complete. So I might actually write that as well. Not just separating and completing. Completing the harakat, right? Meaning the fatha is complete with the jaw lowered, so that there's a space between the teeth. That needs to be done 30 times. Then you move on to lam, which is sukoon, and that's where you have to relax. So that's when you do 2 letters at a time to relax onto sukoon. Okay, for example, ha 30 times again. Then what? Kaf and dhamma 30 times. Completing dhamma as a circle. Look, ooh, cool. It must be completely a circle, and you must feel the air going out, and you must hear it as well. You must hear the haraka complete. Cool. It can't be cool. It's not complete, right? Cool. It's not kumu. Alhaakumu. Those aren't complete. Alhaakumu. Not alhaakumu. Alhaakumu takathur. That's wrong. Alhaakumu takathur. This all of the harakat complete. Okay. In regards to characteristics, right? Making sure that lam, for example, if you have a problem with your lam being nasal, right? Then removing nasal because there's no nasal sound in lam, for example, right? For example, as well, we have what? Articulation, making sure that the lam is not from the tip only. Not from the tip. It's from the side. So including the tip of the side, or the furthest, or the closest part of the tip to the tip of the edge, to the other side. That is the articulation as we learnt of the lam. So you make sure that that is done completely and correctly, right? So you're going to be focusing on practicing 30 times for each part, each letter, with regards to those 5, right, things. Okay, that's why it's 30 times each, because there's a focus on many things. It must be correct. You cannot go from a star jump to a press up to a dumbbell weight. If you do that, you're not going to build any muscle. You can't do 1 rep of each one and then leave it. You must do reps of one focused thing. Like, for example, the dumbbell weights. You lift dumbbells, right? And you don't just do 1 rep, you put it down. No, you do on 30, for example. 30 reps. Same here. You cannot skip any letter. You must do 30 reps of each. Then you move on to the next one. That is going to build your muscle memory. If you do not complete this, then you're not going to develop. So you must complete like this. That is what's going to develop your muscle memory and the strength of your muscles too. Just like we do in the reps for the letters themselves, of course. Okay, so it must be like that. You can't skip this. Okay. Some guidelines and tips. The minimum reps for letters, for example, is at least 1,000 reps per letter, and including all 4 types, right? The harakat, fatha, dhamma, kasra, and sukoon. And you can split the 1,000 into those 4 as you see fit, right? So whatever you see is most beneficial for you. For example, right? I'll put examples here. If you have a completely new letter, you can only do sukoon. You should only do sukoon first because it's completely new. And if you're adding harakat and mobility, it's harder to do. So only do sukoon, right? So you might do sukoon around 700 times here. And then 300 is for the harakat, e, u, okay? If it's a new letter, right? So 700 for sukoon, 100 for kasra, 100 for dhamma, 100 for fatha with the letter. Okay, if your mouth has never produced the letter before, right, at all, then you should do 1,000 at least. Okay, for example, ra. A lot of people can't do ra, right? So for that one, it requires a lot more practice to get to a decent level, right? So, and to even find the letter as well. To find a letter usually takes an average of 3,000 reps if you have not done it before, and if your muscles are not developed to be able to do it. Then after 3,000 reps, your muscle will develop to be able to say it. So that's why you do at least 3,000 if you have never done the letter before. That's to focus on the feeling of the exact place of the letter naturally, without force, to be able to get to that stage of doing the letter. Okay. And of course, I've mentioned before how these reps, they develop your familiarity with the mouth, right? Then you realize what's correct and what's wrong, what feels strangeful, what's better in place. You get to know the mouth, your tongue builds strength, and you find the letter. Okay, so that's for that. Rules of thumb. Okay, as I said, do sukoon only with it, new letters, and make sure your majority of practice is there. Okay. If you're doing 1,000 reps, right, do 700 for the letter, but you should be doing 3,000 for new letters. So around 2,000 reps in sukoon would be maybe beneficial for you, and you can see how it goes for you. Okay, how your letter builds up. Okay, and then 1,000 would be for the rest: fatha, dhamma, kasra. Okay, then after you do sukoon and you've mastered sukoon, then move on to fatha to develop mobility, i.e. movement in the mouth with the letter. So for example, if you're doing ra, you're doing and you kept doing that 2,000 times to be able to build the muscle, right? Now you need to move with it. Ra, 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 ra. You develop that muscle you develop the mobility with fatha. Then with dhamma. Then with kasra. Okay, then that is the first kind of tips I wanted to give you. Then the second thing is that you must make sure that you look at the theory before you practice. You need to watch every theory video, not every one, but the theory video for each letter before you start that letter's practice, because that's the point of the course, right? The point is to have theory and practice and feedback from you. Okay. So the theory helps you to understand what to feel, see, and listen for. Then you use Sheikh Ibn Suwaid's video for the examples to practice. Okay. And for listening as well. And then also, you must do those, obviously, those 5. You must do these 5 in the video. Okay. So, another tip: use all your senses. Okay. Use the senses that you have of your ears to hear the correct sound and not be biased. Okay. Hear the sound, feel the letter. Right? Feel the letter. Okay. Your eyes, watch how the articulation is in your mouth and check, is it the same as the picture? Does it look the same as how I'm doing it? Does it look the same as Sheikh Ibn Suwaid? Compare the mouth of Sheikh Ibn Suwaid as well with the parts of the mouth. Look at the parts of the mouth. Check which part is it touching, which teeth is it touching, etc. Right? Use the eyes to know where it's from, and then change the position with that in mind. Okay? In your mouth, right? Or your tongue. Train your muscles by feeling and repeating the correct position. Okay? Or repeating to be able to build familiarity, etc. and strength, and then get the correct position. Make sure you use your tools. You must use a mirror because you need to see how you're doing it and how it compares to me, right? So use your mirror. Then use your counter for counting the reps. Okay, that will also ensure that you're staying focused with the counter, knowing how much you're doing, how much effort you're putting into the practice, and if you're progressing or not with the many reps you do. Okay, so final notes: your first attempts and your first videos, for example, they don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent, and then you will improve. Okay, use the theory to guide your ears, okay, and your eyes and your mouth, all of the senses. Okay, make sure you use senses. It's very important. Then you can let the practice uncover the rest of what you need to know, because that's when you develop familiarity with your senses as well. Okay, fluency comes through repetition, feedback, and reflection, right, on how it felt, for example, or how it sounds, for reflection on your senses. Okay. Bismillah. Okay. Now, here is a Q&A, short Q&A on this sheet, so that you make sure you know what you're going to be doing. Okay. You can do it in parts if you like, because I don't mind that you are not that strong in this. Just I need to know that you know what you're doing. So you can do this one first and send a video on that, and you can do the next part, and you can give it to me in each part. Okay. Over one video for each part is enough, and then I'll know that you're ready to practice, inshallah. Jazakallahu khairan.